Hi, today I'm going to be discussing fear. There are two types of fear. There's a community fear that we'll start off with. So if the community is under threat, so if you happen to be at the moment in Gaza or the Ukraine, then you would experience community fear because the community is under threat, and that can be via bombs and all sorts. Let's move away from community fear and talk about individual fear. We have fear when our life is threatened or we look like we're going to be hurt or something like that, and that's a defence mechanism. But more pervasive is the fear that comes originally from conditional love. We are programmed to please, we're programmed to obey, we're programmed to seek outside approval. So when we have conditional love, it's like, if you do this, I'll approve of you. If you do that, I won't. If you do this, I'll love you. If you do that, I won't. And so we are conditioned to having what's almost like an emotional energy yo-yo. When people approve of me, I'm feeling good about myself. When people don't approve of me, I don't feel good about myself. And so my whole self-image and my whole self-esteem is indexed to the level of approval that's coming from outside of me. When you look at all our systems out there, like Instagram and Facebook, how many likes do I get? How many hearts do I get? How many thumbs up do I get? All this outside validation. And when we do well, we feel good about ourselves. And when it doesn't go well, then we don't feel good about ourselves. So what is the alternative to this? When I first spent time with our Indigenous people in the desert, I went there and they live in a reality without all the modern day appliances and life that we have. But they had this unbridled joy, this sense of happiness that I couldn't comprehend. Of course, my cynical mind said, oh, there must be something in the water. And then a little bit further on, I was in the Amazon with the Bora people. And again, I saw the same thing. Now this is replicated on the other side of the planet. How does this work? And that night under ayahuasca, I said to Mother Aya, so what's going on here? And Mother Aya said, well, that's unconditional love. It's where, and the Indigenous people say that it takes a village to bring up a child, but what happens in the Indigenous world is when the child is born, it's celebrated by the village. They come together and the village owns that child, and if mum has postnatal depression, she can go walk about for 3 or 4 days, and the village just comes together to fill that void. But the child feels safe, feels celebrated, and has this unbridled joy and a sense of adventure for life. In our culture, we don't have that village environment. We're programmed to obey, are programmed to seek approval from outside of us, and everything about us is what other people think and how they might or might not approve of us. And this comes down to the fact that we are mammals, we're part of the community. Like all mammals, want to be part of the community and we want to be in that community. But our community now is not so much a community, it's more information management around us and how we are projected out there in that time. When we come to understand that our self-esteem is indexed to other people's approval, what can we do about this? Well, the only emotion that the feminine can experience when she looks at a beauty magazine is ugliness, even though she knows that the front page has been airbrushed. And so we have this going on with outside approval. All the marketing that we have is about being perfect. Are my pecs big enough? Is my butt big enough? All these things that people want to project to us about, if we do this and we spend this money here, we'll reach perfection. Not every tree grows to the heavens. Every litter has a runt. We are humans. We're not perfect. In fact, my greatest lessons and teachings have come from my biggest failures. In that sense, we can't be perfect. And if our esteem is indexed to outside approval, well, we can break that nexus by letting go of perfection and say, okay, well, What am I going to have there instead? Doing the best I can in that moment with what I've got. And the rest of the world can take care of themselves. Not seeking outside of approval is a very difficult thing for us to do, because we get programmed this right from the beginning, and it's in our subconscious as well as our conscious mind. So if we replace that with doing the best I can with what I've got, then the rest of the world can just fuck off. Walk a path of your own truth, but it's also understanding to being the best version of who you are, and trying to walk a path of peace and kindness and humility that allows you to walk that path. Just allow other people's judgments around you to flow past you, not to take them on. So the biggest fear that we have in our Western world is this notion of being rejected. This can really be very difficult for teenagers, especially if they're in a community group within school and the group decides that they're going to isolate that person and subjugate them and marginalise them. Then they will be excluded from the group. And from a primordial point of view, where the person is outcast from the community. And when you think back to when man first started, if we're outcast from the community, our ability to survive certainly diminished rather rapidly if we're out there in the wild on our own. And that comes from our primordial programming about wanting to belong part of a community. It's important to understand that fear is in our world largely coming from other people not accepting us, or not giving us what we think we need or what we deserve, or what their judgments are. That's our primary fear. Our community fear comes from the community being threatened, but the majority of our fear is about what other people might think about us. And that's because in our culture we have conditional love rather than unconditional love. So when we start looking through that lens, we can see just what makes us scared. And when we start to see this, we have the opportunity first to say, okay, do I really want to be part of that matrix, that fear-based matrix, or do I want to walk a different path? The choice is always ours. Thank you. And if you enjoy what I've just said, then subscribe, and I look forward to continue our journey.